I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to the Bible, God's holy word. I'll make it a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my heart, and a light unto my path, and hide its words in my heart, that I may not sin against God. 2 Samuel 3:19. Or 3:18, sorry. Now then, do it. For the Lord has spoken of David, saying, By thy hand of my servant David, I will save my people, Israel, out of the hand of thy Philistines, and out of the hand of all their enemies. May God bless the reading of his words. This is Matt Singleton. Welcome to Bible Smack. Today we're going to go over part 9 of my series, American History from a New Testament Christian perspective. And, basically this series really kind of helps us to understand our identity in one of the most historically Christian Protestant nations in world history. And really kind of helps us to understand, how it all folds out in reality and philosophy and stuff like that. So we left off, we talked about the doctrine of religious liberty. We talked about the War of 1812. And today, I hope not to have a very long episode, but we're going to talk a little bit about Texas and the Mexican War. Basically, Texas is kind of interesting. Now, we have some very socialist dominance in American academia today. And so a lot of times they're going to pour over, their version of the story to make America look bad because they want to fundamentally change America, and they're being pretty successful at it so far. But basically, from my perspective of one who kind of holds the Bible and stuff like that, when you look at America adding on the area of Texas, and then later on, what you're getting is a little bit different. Now, every previous civilization had been focused on these ideas of conquest, and the government gets bigger, and then you grow and you take something over. And so most people would assume that's exactly what happened, but it's not exactly what happened with the history of Texas. Essentially, Texas, like many of the other American territories, is functionally, there are some people there, but it's really empty. Okay, not a huge population. And so what happens is that there's a lot of these settlers who are moving out from the American South. And as part of the American South, they come from a very strong Calvinist tradition, which one thing that led them to is they would have a strong view of the Bible. They'd be very literate and very educated. And basically, with the South versus the North, and we haven't dealt with this yet because I don't feel like we want to take it all in a big package, but basically the South is like the slave states and the North is the free states. And their expansion was kind of more in a competition. It wasn't like, well, the North didn't really like this whole adding on of Texas thing, okay? But the North, we saw in the war in 1812, they tried to add on with Canada, okay? So you got that going on. But basically it didn't start with Texas actually, okay, now we're going to go and take over you Mexicans. No, that's not what happened. Actually, the Mexican government welcomed a large population of these Christian Calvinist families and stuff. And why? Because they had empty territory, they wanted it settled, they want means of production, they wanted the economy growing and all this kind of stuff. So when they saw them coming into the territory, they said, you know what, that's what we need. And I might not be accurate. They might have even asked them. I don't know. But basically, that was all agreed to. Everybody was coming in. And you had a very powerful family structure. They didn't just, have one person here and one person there. You do what you want. They were all having kids and kids and kids and kids. A lot of multiplication with the population. So basically, they were multiplying. They were very educated, and essentially, what happened is the same situation that you saw with the American colonies. I mean, it was like, okay, we're here, we're doing our thing, and now you're just going to rule us from afar. And they didn't like that. They didn't like Mr. Santa Anna and all them. And so basically, they started talking to some of the other Mexicans who were Texan and stuff, and they started getting them in on these ideas of like independence and democracy and stuff like that. And so initially, it was not actually America taking over Texas. Texas actually won its own independence, and you had some settlers. I think the most famous one was a former governor of Tennessee, Sam Houston, coming over. But you had guys like Davy Crockett and some of these guys, and basically the rubber started to hit the road because you had this Catholic, which was at the time pretty much socialist dominance, and they weren't listening to the settlers or hearing their grievances out. And so finally this culminated in the battle at a mission they call the Alamo. Okay, and basically it was 200 settlers, 200 Protestants, and a war of 3,000 Catholics army to destroy them. And basically it went on and on and on, and then eventually they did kill off all the Protestants. And this inspired the rest of them to win their independence. And so once Texas won its independence, it was then then they decided to go ahead and join forces with with the Americans. So yeah, it was not a just clean out like, okay, we're taking over and that's that. It wasn't a conquest. But basically, the Mexican government, they'd still, they're pretty mad, so they decided they were going to hit it again a couple years later. And in the Mexican War, America joined forces with it. Once again, the North didn't like this, okay, because these were people from the South, and the South was an agricultural economy, and the way to boost the agricultural economy was owning slaves. And so this would be a boost onto there. The North wanted to, deal with this situation. A lot of them never wanted to have the system of slavery, and kudos to that. But basically, there had been this kind of bulge there, so they didn't really want, this to happen. But basically, it did. And it's a good thing because of how powerful and influential the state of Texas has been to America. And, if we didn't have a big country, we wouldn't be able to stand up to the evils of the world, later on, like with the Nazis and the communists and things like that. So basically, is another essential ingredient into America. And when America fought in the Mexican War, then Mexico went and lost California, New Mexico, Arizona, and all them. So that was about that. One of the things is just that, as I said, the Calvinist society was a stronger society. It was a stronger group of people. They were better educated, so they could fight better because they knew better strategies. Once you have an educated society, it's totally different. Before the 1800s, there wasn't this widespread need for literacy, but because, they became a people of the book, you had to read to know the book. So basically, that's what happened. People started reading the Bible, and then they started reading other books, and they started getting more technologically advanced. So, once again, that's kind of part of the conquest there. From a New Testament Christian perspective, I think that would probably be the way to do it as far as like, them fighting for independence and democracy and stuff like that, as opposed to, okay, we're looking at you and we're going to take you over. Okay. But, there's still some angst and stuff from back there. And of course, there is the difference of the New Testament Christian versus the Calvinist. And maybe I should say, because a New Testament Christian could be a Calvinist, but what I'm talking about is that Reformed idea and the Reformed theology, which would hold to more of government mixing with religion, or religion mixing with government. They would hold to a stronger idea of that. And that's where they start instituting that Mosaic law. So that's kind of what was going on there. But we will see you later on Bible Smack. And